I was hired to treat the young master of the Vance family for his eating disorder. Not because I'm a doctor, but because I have a huge appetite. When I first met him, he had just finished a shouting match with his little girlfriend and had refused to eat all day. The servant said it wasn't the first time, and from the sound of it, definitely not the last. The moment I stepped into his world, the invisible voices of gossip seemed to echo in my head like a barrage of cruel on-screen comments. Here she comes, the side character trying to seduce the male lead. Can't she just stay in her place, even after a fight? Our male lead only loves the female lead. Honestly, even though those voices weren't real, I still felt like shrinking into myself. A servant led me to the door of Leo Vance's room. From inside came the sound of smashing glass, maybe, or plates. The young master was in one of his moods again. Leo Vance was infamous for his temper. He lived by his own rules, and no one dared to challenge him except his precious girlfriend. When they argued, the whole house went silent. This time, their fight had sent him spiraling again, his appetite gone, his frustration locked behind those massive oak doors. The family doctor had suggested something unconventional. Hire someone who loved food, let them eat in front of him, and maybe the sight would trigger his own appetite. That's where I came in. Mrs. Vance told me she'd pay for my grandmother's medical bills if I helped with her son's treatment. I didn't hesitate. If eating could save someone's health and pay for grandma's surgery, I was all in. I was still holding the 2 apples a servant had shoved into my hands when the crashing inside grew louder. The servant gave me a nervous push. "You go in yourself. I have something to do." Before I could protest, she was gone. Left alone, I peeled one of the apples and took a bite. The sweet, crisp flesh exploded on my tongue. Even their fruit tasted like luxury. Rich people really do live differently, I muttered under my breath. Still munching, I pushed open the door. The room looked like a storm had hit it. Broken glass on the floor, a lamp lying sideways, the curtains half torn. Amid the chaos stood Leo Vance, tall, broad-shouldered, dark eyes sharp as blades. When he turned and saw me, his brows knitted together in irritation. For a few seconds, we just stared at each other. And again, those invisible voices whispered in my head, as if the universe itself was mocking me. Here she comes, the side character trying to seduce the male lead. Our male lead only loves the female lead. She should know her place. If she dares to have any sneaky intentions, she'll be kicked out to beg on the streets. My fingers went cold around the apple. I wanted to speak, but Leo's glare made my voice vanish. His eyes flicked to my lips, probably sticky with juice, then down to the apple in my hand. He stared for a moment too long. Panicking, I thought maybe he wanted some. So I swallowed the bite still in my mouth and stammered, do you want a bite?" His brows furrowed. "Get out." The words landed like a slap. I quietly stepped back, clutching my apple like it could protect me. "Okay," I whispered, before slipping out. That night, Leo still didn't eat. I lay awake in the guest room, convinced I'd be fired by morning. After all, I had failed my very first task as a professional eater. My stomach growled miserably. I'd only eaten that 1 apple all day. Finally, I gave up trying to sleep and tiptoed to the kitchen. The house was huge and quiet, the marble floors cold under my bare feet. Opening the fridge, I found pasta, chicken, and some onions. My hands moved almost on instinct. Before long, the scent of garlic and tomato filled the air. Spaghetti with grilled chicken, simple, but heavenly. The sauce was rich and glossy, the pasta perfectly chewy, and the onions added just the right freshness. I crouched by the counter, fork in hand, enjoying every bite like it was the best meal of my life. That was when I heard a faint noise behind me, soft footsteps, the kind that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Startled, I froze mid-bite, my fork suspended halfway to my mouth. Standing in the doorway was Leo, his expression unreadable under the dim kitchen light. For a long second, we just stared at each other, the quiet hum of the refrigerator filling the air. Then, without a word, he walked over and turned on the light above the dining table. The sudden brightness made me squint. 3 minutes later, I found myself sitting at the table, awkwardly twirling spaghetti on my fork while Leo sat across from me, silently watching. Being stared at so intensely made my skin prickle at first, but once I took another bite, the rich tomato flavor filled my mouth and all my nerves melted away. Food has always been my comfort zone. No amount of glaring could change that. By the time I finished the first plate, I was already reaching for seconds when Leo finally spoke. Is it really that good? His tone carried a hint of curiosity, almost disbelief. My cheeks were full, so I could only nod enthusiastically, my eyes bright with honest delight. He stared for a moment, then let out something between a sigh and a laugh. "Why are you so silly?" he murmured, then gestured lazily. "Go get me a plate too." My eyes widened. "Really?" I said with my mouth still full, voice muffled. Then I nodded rapidly, thrilled. Okay. Good thing I had made enough for 3. Normally, I could finish them all myself, but if sharing a meal helped his appetite, then I was happy to split it. I plated the pasta and handed him a fork. "Try it. It's really good." Leo accepted it with the quiet elegance of someone raised in luxury. His movements were refined, precise, even when eating something as simple as spaghetti. He took one bite. I leaned forward, forgetting my own food. "Well, how is it?" He didn't answer right away. His gaze softened just slightly as he looked at me. "Keep eating," he said simply. I grinned and dove back into my plate. When I was finally done, I noticed Leo's own dish, already half-finished. The invisible bullet comments of the universe exploded in my head again. Wait, what? The male lead ate half a plate? Wasn't he supposed to be disgusted by food? Why do I suddenly feel hungry watching this? The side character looks way too happy eating in the middle of the night. But I didn't care. That night, for the first time, Vance ate something substantial. After that, I officially became part of the Vance household. Mrs. Vance, clearly relieved, explained the arrangement. Leo's eating disorder had damaged his stomach, so every meal mattered. I'd earn $1,000 for every meal he finished, and if I could get him to eat fruit or dessert, she'd double it. It was the most delicious job I'd ever had. So, I followed Leo everywhere: mealtime, snack time, late-night cravings. Slowly, he started eating more, not much at first, but enough to make Mrs. Vance nearly cry with joy. Eventually, she even arranged for me to transfer to Leo's elite school, so I could keep an eye on his meals there too. One afternoon, I brought a slice of mango mousse cake to his classroom. From my observations, mango seemed to be his weakness. Whenever it was on the table, he'd at least take a few bites. I placed the cake carefully on his desk and hurried back to my class, eager to check later if he'd eaten it. But when I returned after the final bell, chaos had broken out. Leo's girlfriend, Laura, was clutching her chest, her face pale, red rashes spreading rapidly down her arms. Her friends surrounded her, panicking. "Laura? What happened?" Leo's voice was sharp with fear. Through tearful gasps, she pointed at me. "Emma said I could have some, so I ate it, but there was mango in it, and I'm allergic." The invisible bullet comments roared in my mind again, vicious as ever. I knew it. The side character finally showed her true colors. She's jealous of the female lead and gave her something she's allergic to. Look, the female lead's in pain. The male lead must be devastated. I felt the blood drain from my face. "That's not true," I blurted out, grabbing the half-eaten cake from the desk. I told her it was mango cake. She asked if she could have some, and I said only if Leo agreed, and I made it clear it had mango. But Laura wasn't listening. She was too busy gasping for air, her tears streaming down as the teacher rushed in with a phone, shouting for an ambulance. And all the while, Leo's furious gaze locked on me, cold, dark, and accusing. Laura whimpered softly, clutching Leo's arm. I didn't hear her say that. "Leo, I'm in so much pain." I frowned. "How could you not have heard? There were people right there. We can check the surveillance if you don't believe me." It should have been simple to prove. A camera, a few witnesses, anyone could confirm what really happened. But as I looked at Leo, hoping for even a flicker of belief in his eyes, all I saw was panic. Panic for her. Laura's face had gone completely white, her tears streaking down her cheeks as she gasped for air. Leo didn't even look at me. He wrapped his arm around her trembling shoulders, pulling her close. "Enough," he snapped when I tried to speak again. His voice was sharp, cold, and final. Then he struck the cake box out of my hands. The delicate mousse hit the ground, splattering cream and crumbs across the marble floor. "Laura doesn't lie," he said flatly. "Stop making excuses." And just like that, he lifted her into his arms and carried her out, his voice soft again as he murmured something I couldn't hear. I stood there, surrounded by the mess of my own ruined dessert, my heart oddly hollow. Not because I was wrongly accused, but because, damn it, that was $1,000 down the drain. I sighed and mentally did the math. Grandma's surgery still needed 70 more meals worth of pay. 70 times 1,000, my shoulders slumped. Luckily, Laura's reaction was treated in time and didn't cause any lasting harm. But for 3 long days after that, Leo didn't speak to me at all. He passed by me in the halls like I was invisible. Then one night around 9, my phone buzzed. "Hey, silly," came Leo's lazy drawl. "Go buy me a chocolate cake from Westboro. Hurry." I blinked. "Westboro? But the shop closes at 10. Then you'd better run." He hung up before I could answer, but hearing the promise of another paid meal made my eyes light up. Okay. I'll go right now." I barely noticed the background noise from his end. The laughter, the clinking glasses, the faint voice of one of his friends saying, "Dude, where'd you find this little nanny? She's so obedient. She even sounds like she's babying you." Leo chuckled. "Go, Emma. Don't be slow." I hurried across the city, clutching my wallet and praying the shop hadn't closed yet. By the time I arrived, it was 9:55. I grabbed the last chocolate cake, paid in cash, and rushed to the address Leo had texted me. But when I got there, the street was deserted. No shops, no karaoke bar, nothing but flickering streetlights and the bitter wind. I called him once. No answer. Twice. Still nothing. By the 3rd time, his phone went straight to voicemail. I crouched under a streetlight, hugging the cake box to my chest. The night air bit at my fingers. After the 5th unanswered call, I gave up and opened the box. "Just one bite," I whispered to myself, cutting a small piece. The rich chocolate melted on my tongue, sweet, creamy, and heartbreakingly good. That's when my phone rang. Leo's voice came through, lazy and amused. "You hold grudges, huh? This was just a little lesson. Remember it next time." On the other end, I heard Laura's voice protest faintly, "I don't hold grudges." Leo laughed softly. All right, you don't. Anyway, I sent you the new address. Come quickly." I wiped my face, forcing a smile. "Well, at least he's still willing to eat," I muttered. Otherwise, tonight would have been a total loss. When I finally arrived, the sound of laughter spilled out from the private room. I hesitated for a second, then pushed the door open. Inside, the scene was bright and warm. Music playing, friends teasing, glasses clinking. Laura sat beside Leo, cheeks flushed pink as she leaned up and kissed him lightly on the cheek. The room erupted into playful whistles. The invisible bullet comments flooded my mind again. So pure and adorable. She did that on purpose so the side character would see, marking her territory, huh? The chocolate cake was for the female lead all along. LOL, the sidekick went all that way for nothing. My throat tightened. Laura stood and walked toward me, still smiling sweetly. She took the cake from my hands like it was hers all along. "Thanks for getting this for me." Leo frowned slightly. "I'm not hungry," he muttered. "You can have it." Laura shrugged, losing interest. "Then I don't want it either." She tossed the box aside carelessly. The cake slid off the table, landing with a dull splat on the floor. I didn't cry when I had to run across the city before closing time. I didn't cry when I sat on a cold, empty street for half an hour, waiting for a call that never came. But watching that cake, the one I'd carried through the wind and dark, hit the ground like it meant nothing, that broke something inside me. My world didn't just crack. It quietly collapsed. All the frustration from the night finally caught up with me. My throat tightened, my chest felt heavy, and before I knew it, my eyes stung with tears. I bent down, picked up a piece of the fallen cake, and held it out stubbornly. "Leo," I said, voice trembling. "Are you sure you don't want to try it?" His friends snickered. "Dude, your nanny's too sweet," one of them teased. "You mentioned chocolate cake once, and she's been fixated on it all night. Come on, man, just take a bite." "Look, she's about to cry." Leo's gaze flicked to me. For a moment, something in his expression shifted, his smirk faltered, the irritation in his eyes softening just a little. Maybe out of guilt, maybe out of pity. He sighed, half amused, half reluctant, and finally took the cake from my hand. "Fine," he muttered. "You win." Then, with that signature smirk of his, he took a slow, deliberate bite. The room erupted in cheers and laughter, but I barely heard them. The knot in my chest loosened just slightly. At least he ate. Leaving the private room, I walked out into the cold night air. My feet carried me to a small, 24-hour diner nearby. There, under the fluorescent lights, I ordered the biggest hamburger on the menu. When it arrived, warm and greasy, I bit into it with a quiet sob of relief. By the time I got back to the mansion, I was still sniffling, clutching my half-eaten burger. The butler spotted me in the hallway and froze, horrified. "Miss Emma, why are you crying over a burger? Was it that good?" I hiccuped between bites. So many chocolate cakes went to waste. He didn't even want them. He just tricked me. The butler's face softened in understanding. "Ah," he sighed, "young Master Leo can be difficult." He led me into the living room to calm down, but as soon as I stepped in, I noticed someone sitting on the sofa, a man I hadn't seen before. He wore a perfectly tailored dark suit, a wristwatch that probably cost more than my rent, and gold-rimmed glasses that framed a pair of calm, thoughtful eyes. His presence was quiet, yet commanding. The butler cleared his throat. "Young master, this is Miss Emma, the one Mrs. Vance hired to assist Leo with his eating disorder."
Ah.
So this was Leo's older brother. Mortified, I quickly wiped my eyes and bowed slightly. Hello." He gave a polite nod, his gaze steady but unreadable. The butler, ever the caretaker, turned to me again. "A hamburger might not be enough for you after all that. What else would you like? I can have the kitchen make it." I blinked at him, surprised. "Barbecue ribs?" "Right away," he said, disappearing toward the kitchen. A few minutes later, the smell of grilled meat filled the room. My appetite returned, and I dug in enthusiastically. But halfway through my meal, I felt it, that quiet, probing gaze again. I looked up. The older Vance brother was watching me. He didn't say a word, just studied me as I chewed, my cheeks full like a chipmunk. Embarrassed, I swallowed and tilted my head. "Is something wrong?" After a moment, he finally spoke. "What rate did my mother offer you?" His voice was smooth, low, and measured. $1,000, I said honestly, "for every meal Leo eats." He hummed thoughtfully, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "I see." Then, with casual precision, he leaned forward slightly. "Would you consider taking on additional work?" I blinked. "Additional work?" "You'd remind me to eat on time, keep me company during meals, that sort of thing," he explained lightly. "How does 10,000 per meal sound?" I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. "10,000? He chuckled softly at my expression, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "You're not speaking," he said, voice teasing. "So, let's make it 20,000. Before I could react, he reached out and gently pinched my cheek. His touch was brief, but disarming. "Sorry," he said, withdrawing his hand with a faint smile. "I couldn't help it. You eat so delightfully." He spoke as if discussing a normal business deal, calm and sure of himself. "I don't have an eating disorder," he continued. "I'll eat whatever you bring me, and I promise not to make you cry." For a second, I forgot how to breathe. Then I put my fork down, wide-eyed. "Really?" His gaze softened. "I don't lie." The older Vance brother, whose name I learned was Adrian, kept his word. The next morning, Mrs. Vance called me into her study, her expression a mixture of surprise and something I couldn't quite read. "Emma, my eldest son has made a rather unusual request. He'd like you to assist him with his meals as well." I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Yes, ma'am. He mentioned it last night." She studied me carefully. "Adrian doesn't make frivolous requests. If he's asked for this, he has his reasons." She paused, then added, "You'll continue with Leo, of course. But Adrian will compensate you separately for your time with him." 20,000 per meal. The number still made my head spin. That evening, I found myself in Adrian's private dining room, a space far quieter than anywhere else in the mansion. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the garden, and soft classical music played from hidden speakers. Adrian sat at the head of the table, reviewing documents on his tablet. When I entered with a tray of honey-glazed salmon and roasted vegetables, he looked up and smiled slightly. "You cooked this yourself?" I nodded. "The kitchen staff helped, but yes. I hope you like it." "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair beside him, not across from him, but close enough that we'd be eating together. I hesitated. "Are you sure? I usually just—"
"Emma."
His voice was gentle but firm. "I hired you for company during meals, not to watch me eat alone. Please sit."
So I did.
Unlike Leo, who ate with barely concealed reluctance, Adrian approached food with quiet appreciation. He took his time, savoring each bite, occasionally commenting on the flavors. "This is excellent," he said after a moment. The honey balances the salmon perfectly. I beamed, my earlier nervousness melting away. Thank you. I wasn't sure if it would be too sweet. It's perfect. He paused, then asked, Tell me, Emma, why did you agree to this arrangement? With Leo, it can't be easy. I swallowed my bite of food carefully. My grandmother needs surgery. The medical bills are more than I could ever afford on my own. Mrs. Vance offered to cover them if I could help Leo. Adrian's expression softened. I see. And has he been kind to you? The memory of last night, running across the city, sitting alone in the cold, watching the cake hit the floor, flashed through my mind. But I forced a smile. He's going through a lot. I don't take it personally. You should. Adrian set down his fork and turned to face me fully. Emma, kindness isn't conditional. You deserve respect regardless of the circumstances. His words hit me harder than I expected. I looked down at my plate, throat tight. We finished the meal in comfortable silence. When Adrian finally pushed back from the table, he looked more relaxed than when we'd started. Same time tomorrow, he asked. I nodded, smiling. I'll be here. As I left his dining room, the invisible voices whispered again, but this time they sounded different. Wait, is she switching sides? Is the second male lead entering the story? Plot twist. The side character is getting her own storyline. I shook my head, amused despite myself. But as I walked back to my room, I couldn't deny it. For the first time since coming to this house, I felt genuinely appreciated. Over the next 2 weeks, I fell into a rhythm. Breakfast and lunch with Leo, dinner with Adrian. The contrast between them was startling. Leo ate like it was a chore, often distracted by his phone or staring out the window. Our conversations were minimal. Sometimes Laura would join us, and those meals were the worst. I'd sit silently while they bickered, my presence completely forgotten. But with Adrian, meals felt warm. He asked about my day, my grandmother's health, what I liked to cook. He listened when I spoke, really listened, his dark eyes focused entirely on me. You light up when you talk about food, he said one evening over beef bourguignon. It's remarkable. I laughed, embarrassed. I've always loved eating. Some people think it's childish. Those people are wrong. Adrian's tone was decisive. Passion is never childish. It's what makes life worth living. His words stayed with me long after dinner ended. Meanwhile, Leo was deteriorating again. He and Laura had another massive fight, this time over her accusing him of spending too much time at work and not enough with her. In retaliation, Leo stopped eating almost entirely. Mrs. Vance was beside herself. Emma, please. You have to get him to eat something. Anything. I tried. God, I tried. I made his favorite foods, sat with him for hours, even tried eating in front of him the way I had that first night. But Leo would just stare at the food with hollow eyes and push it away. I'm not hungry, he'd say flatly. One afternoon, I found him in the library, staring blankly at a book he wasn't reading. I sat down across from him, holding a plate of fresh fruit. Leo, please. Just a few bites. He didn't even look up. Why do you care so much? Because I hesitated. Because your health matters. And because your mother is worried sick about you. My mother hired you, he said coldly. Don't pretend you care beyond the paycheck. The words stung more than I wanted to admit. That's not fair. Isn't it? Finally, he looked at me, and his eyes were empty. You're here because of money, just like everyone else. I stood up, the plate trembling slightly in my hands. You're wrong. Yes, I needed this job. But that doesn't mean I don't care about you. You're a person, Leo, not just a paycheck. For a moment, something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or regret. But it was gone as quickly as it came. Get out, he said quietly. I left the fruit and walked away. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about Leo's words. Was he right? Was I just here for the money? But then I remembered why I'd taken this job in the first place, to save my grandmother. That wasn't selfish. That was love. During dinner with Adrian, I must have looked upset because he immediately noticed. What's wrong? I shook my head. Nothing. Just a long day. Adrian set down his wine glass. Emma, you don't have to pretend with me. What happened? And somehow, everything spilled out. Leo's accusations, the constant fighting with Laura, the feeling that I was invisible in my own job. Adrian listened without interrupting. When I finished, he reached across the table and gently squeezed my hand. My brother is hurting, he said quietly. But that doesn't give him the right to hurt you. You've shown him nothing but kindness, Emma. Don't let his pain make you doubt yourself. I looked down at our joined hands, my chest tight with emotion. Thank you, I whispered. Adrian's thumb brushed across my knuckles. You're not invisible to me. The invisible voices roared to life in my head. Oh my God, the second male lead is making his move. This is getting spicy. Team Adrian all the way. But wait, what about the original plot? Isn't she supposed to end up alone? I pulled my hand back gently, my face burning. I should go. It's getting late. Adrian nodded, but his eyes held something warm and unspoken. Good night, Emma. See you tomorrow. As I walked back to my room, my heart was pounding. What was happening to me? Everything came to a head on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I'd just finished having lunch with Adrian, a peaceful meal of mushroom risotto, when Mrs. Vance found me in the hallway, her face pale with panic. Emma, it's Leo. He's collapsed. My heart dropped. What? He hasn't eaten in 3 days. The doctor said his blood sugar is dangerously low. He's in his room right now, refusing medical attention. I didn't think. I just ran. When I burst into Leo's room, he was sitting on the edge of his bed, looking furious and exhausted. A doctor stood nearby, trying to reason with him. Young master, please, you need to go to the hospital. I'm fine, Leo snapped. Everyone just leave me alone.
Leo.
My voice came out sharper than I intended. You're not fine. You collapsed. Do you know how scared everyone is? He looked at me, eyes blazing. Why are you here? Shouldn't you be with my brother? The venom in his voice made me freeze. What? Oh, don't play innocent. Leo stood up, swaying slightly. I've seen the way you look at him. The way he looks at you. You came here for me, but now you've found someone better, haven't you? Someone richer, more successful. The invisible voices screamed in my head. Drama. The male lead is jealous. Wait, does he actually care about her? This is the turning point. I stepped forward, anger rising in my chest. You don't get to do this. You don't get to push me away for weeks, tell me I'm only here for money, and then act betrayed when I find kindness elsewhere. Leo's jaw clenched. So you admit it. Admit what? That your brother treats me like a human being? That he actually appreciates what I do? My voice cracked. Yes, Leo. I admit it. Adrian is kind to me. And, you know what? It feels good to be valued. For a moment, Leo looked like I'd slapped him. His face went pale, then red. Get out, he said hoarsely.
No.
I grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at me. Not until you eat something. I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you fire me. But I'm not leaving until you eat. We stood there, locked in a silent battle of wills. The doctor and Mrs. Vance watched from the doorway, holding their breath. Finally, Leo's shoulders sagged. Why? He whispered. Why do you care so much? Because someone has to. My voice softened. Because you're suffering, and you don't deserve that. Because even when you're cruel, I can see how much pain you're in. Something in Leo's expression crumbled. He sank back onto the bed, suddenly looking much younger than his years. Laura left me, he said quietly.
For good this time.
She said I was too broken to love. My heart ached. Leo. Maybe she's right. Maybe I am broken. He looked up at me, eyes red-rimmed. Everyone leaves eventually. Why would you be any different? I knelt down in front of him, meeting his gaze. I'm not leaving. Not unless you really want me to. But Leo, you have to let people help you. You can't keep pushing everyone away. For the first time since I'd met him, Leo Vance started to cry. And in that moment I understood. He wasn't cruel, he was terrified. Terrified of being abandoned, of being unlovable, of losing control. I reached out and took his hand. Let's start small, okay?
Just eat something.
Anything. For me. He nodded weakly. 20 minutes later, Leo had eaten half a bowl of chicken soup and a slice of bread. It wasn't much, but it was something. Mrs. Vance was nearly sobbing with relief. After the doctor left and Leo fell asleep, I found Adrian waiting in the hallway. Is he all right? He asked quietly. I nodded. He will be. Eventually. Adrian studied my face. You're exhausted. I'm fine, Emma. He stepped closer, his voice gentle. You can't save everyone. Especially not people who don't want to be saved. I have to try, I said. I can't just give up on him. Adrian sighed, but there was understanding in his eyes. I know. It's one of the things He paused, then continued carefully. One of the things I admire about you. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the world seemed to narrow to just the two of us. Adrian, I don't. He smiled sadly.
Not yet.
Not while you're still trying to save my brother. I won't put you in that position. My chest tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his touch feather-light. Just don't forget to take care of yourself too, all right? I nodded, not trusting my voice. As Adrian walked away, the invisible voices whispered again. The second male lead is stepping back. He's giving her space. But the male lead is finally showing vulnerability. This is the redemption arc. Who is she going to choose? I leaned against the wall, closing my eyes. I didn't have an answer. The weeks that followed were different. Leo started eating regularly again, not perfectly, but consistently. He apologized for his outburst, for the chocolate cake incident, for all the times he'd been cruel. It was awkward and halting, but it was real. I'm trying, he said one morning over breakfast. To be better. To be less broken. You're not broken, I told him firmly. You're healing. There's a difference. Slowly, carefully, we rebuilt our relationship. But it was different now, less like patient and caretaker, more like friends. As for Adrian, he continued our dinners, but there was a new carefulness between us. A deliberate distance. He never overstepped, never pressured me, but I could feel his feelings in every glance, every small gesture of kindness. And my own heart? It was hopelessly confused. One evening, about a month after Leo's breakdown, Mrs. Vance called me into her study. Emma, I have wonderful news. Your grandmother's surgery was a complete success. The doctors say she'll make a full recovery. Relief flooded through me so intensely, I nearly collapsed. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you so much. Mrs. Vance smiled warmly. You've done more for this family than you know. Both my sons are healthier and happier because of you. She paused. Your contract is complete. You're free to return home whenever you'd like.
Free.
The word should have filled me with joy. But instead, it felt like an ending I wasn't ready for. That night, I cooked one last meal, a feast really. Roasted duck, garlic mashed potatoes, honey-glazed carrots, fresh bread, and for dessert, a chocolate mousse cake. I invited both Leo and Adrian to dine together. It was the first time all three of us had shared a meal. The dinner was surprisingly pleasant. Leo and Adrian talked about work, about family, about everything except the elephant in the room, me leaving. Finally, as we finished dessert, Leo spoke up. Emma, I need to tell you something. He looked nervous. I think I might have feelings for you. The invisible voices exploded. The male lead confesses. Finally. Character development. But wait, what about the second male lead? Before I could respond, Adrian set down his fork. Leo, that's not fair. Why not? Leo's voice was defensive. I'm being honest. You're cornering her. Adrian's tone was calm, but firm. Emma just finished her job. She's about to go home to her grandmother. This isn't the time. Leo flushed. I couldn't let her leave without saying it. I looked between the two brothers, my heart aching. Leo, I care about you. I do. But I don't think what you're feeling is romantic love. I think you're grateful, and maybe a little dependent on the stability I brought. That's not the same thing. Leo started to protest, then stopped. After a long moment, he nodded slowly. Maybe you're right. I don't know. Everything's still so confusing. That's okay, I said gently. You don't have to have all the answers right now. Adrian cleared his throat. Emma, I have something to say as well. He met my eyes steadily. I won't make a grand declaration like my brother. But I want you to know that these past months have meant a great deal to me. You've brought light into a house that's been dark for too long. My throat tightened. Adrian, I'm not asking for an answer, he continued. I just want you to know that if you ever need anything at all, I'll be here. No strings attached. No expectations. The difference between them was so clear in that moment. Leo's love was urgent, desperate, still learning. Adrian's was patient, steady, mature. But I wasn't ready for either. Thank you, I said quietly. Both of you. But right now, I need to go home. My grandmother needs me. And I need time to figure out who I am outside of this house. They both nodded, understanding even if they didn't like it. The next morning, as I packed my things, Leo caught me in the hallway. Emma, wait. He held out a small box. I got you something. For helping me. for not giving up on me. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a tiny fork charm. I laughed despite my tears. It's perfect. You're going to come back and visit, right? Leo asked, and for the first time, he sounded like the young man he was, vulnerable and hopeful. Of course, I promised. Adrian drove me to the train station himself. As we stood on the platform, he handed me an envelope. What's this? Your earnings from our dinners. Plus a little extra. He smiled. Consider it a scholarship fund. I've heard you've always wanted to go to culinary school. I stared at the envelope, overwhelmed. Adrian, I can't. You can. And you will. He squeezed my shoulder gently. Emma, you have a gift. Don't waste it because you think you don't deserve it. The train whistle blew. I should go, I whispered. I know. Adrian's hand lingered on my shoulder for just a moment longer. But, Emma, when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll still be here. I nodded, not trusting my voice, and boarded the train. As it pulled away from the station, I looked back to see both brothers standing there, Leo waving enthusiastically, Adrian with his hands in his pockets, watching quietly. The invisible voices whispered one last time. The side character is leaving. What happens now? This isn't how these stories usually end. Wait. Maybe that's the point? I smiled through my tears and turned toward home. 6 months later, I was enrolled in culinary school, making new friends and slowly building the life I'd always dreamed of. My grandmother was healthy and happy, proud of everything I'd accomplished. I texted both Leo and Adrian regularly. Leo was seeing a therapist and working on himself. Adrian sent me pictures of his meals with gentle complaints that nothing tasted as good as my cooking. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered what might have been. But mostly, I was grateful. Grateful for the job that saved my grandmother. Grateful for Leo teaching me that healing isn't linear. Grateful for Adrian showing me what respect and patience looked like. And grateful, most of all, for learning that sometimes the best love story isn't about choosing between two people, it's about choosing yourself first. After all, when hunger meets heart, the most important thing to feed is your own soul. Epilogue. 1 year later. The invitation came on a Tuesday. You are cordially invited to the grand opening of Emma's Kitchen. I stood in my new restaurant, small but perfect, arranging flowers on the tables. It had taken a year of hard work, late nights, and determination, but I'd done it. My own place. The door chimed, and I looked up to see both Leo and Adrian walking in, dressed in suits and carrying flowers. You came? I beamed. Wouldn't miss it, Leo said, grinning. He looked healthier, happier, more settled in himself. Besides, someone has to make sure you're eating enough while you're feeding everyone else. Adrian smiled, handing me a bouquet of sunflowers. The place looks beautiful, Emma, just like I knew it would. As the evening went on, the restaurant filled with friends, family, and guests. I moved through the crowd, making sure everyone had enough food, laughing at jokes, soaking in the joy of it all. At one point, I caught Adrian watching me from across the room. Our eyes met, and he raised his glass in a quiet toast. Not yet, his smile seemed to say, but maybe someday. I smiled back. Maybe someday indeed. But for now, I had everything I needed, a dream fulfilled, people I loved, and a kitchen full of hungry hearts to feed. And really, what more could anyone ask for?